Tracey Cook, and welcome to the podcast series Victim to Victory. This series gives a voice to those that have overcome obstacles in all forms, that dare greatly to share their real stories. Amazing humans that have seen hope and risen above those adversities to become victorious, that now support and inspire others to do the same. We have got an amazing guest today. Her name is Melanie Wood, and we would love to have you as part of our Victim to Victim community here today, Melanie, because I know how inspiring you are, how empowering you are. And we were talking before the show saying that it is great to meet another storyteller. So welcome, Melanie, to Victim to Victory.
Thank you so much, Tracey, for having me. I'm super excited to be here and love everything that you're doing and really being able to help more people and help people share their stories as well. So thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. Now, I'm going to share with our audience a little bit about you, if that's okay,
Of
because you
course.
have to follow Melanie. She is a storytelling queen. She is an expert and guru in her industry and in her field. And Melanie believes that communication can't be delegated and works with clients to build competence, to create confidence with empowering action. Melanie's work has transformed her clients' companies and businesses to the next level growth and capitalisation. So she's in a very, very special place in storytelling, because storytelling is our brand. Your brand is your story is your brand. And I love the way that Melanie is on a mission to help as many people build competence with communication in organizations and businesses around the world. Melanie is global. She's in a global entrepreneur space. Now, Melanie has built her business here in Australia, and it's great to have another Aussie on here, and back home in the UK, and divides her time between both countries. Now, Melanie has developed her business and interpersonal skills working in a wide spectrum of organisations, blue chip companies, non-for-profit, private government, small businesses, both locally, nationally, and globally. Melanie has been featured, she's a very special guest today, in the world media, including Fox, NBC, CBS, the Boston Herald. She is amazing, everybody, and NY Headline as the leading speaking coach, empowering women to have a voice in this world. And that is more needed than ever. Melanie, you are an absolute rock star, superstar. Where does your story start?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I love this question, and it is stepping up to be that leader and share your story. And it wasn't always the case for me. It's taken me a long time to get to that point to be able to share my story. And I know that could be the same for a lot of other people. So for me, my story really begins, gosh, it's coming up to like 20 years ago now as well. Like, wow, time absolutely flies. And when I was 20 years ago, I was in my kind of late teens, and I was absolutely fearless of life. Like, I had the whole world, at my oyster. The future was there. And I had this one-way ticket to go to America. So I was in Scotland at the time, and I had this one-way ticket to America because for me, America was the dream place. That's where you went for the opportunities and the dreams. I'd been on holiday and absolutely loved it and thought, how am I going to get there and how am I going to immigrate? So from a small child, I knew that I would immigrate to another country at some stage. I just knew it. And literally was around about 6 months before leaving to go to America and begin that journey. I met a man in a nightclub, and back home in Scotland, Glasgow, back in the day when you're drinking every weekend, that was the thing. And when I was there, I met him, and in a very drunken night out, and I ended up winning my one-way ticket to America. And got into a relationship and got married instead. And I was 18 at the time as well, so quite naive, quite young at the time as well. And what ended up happening was I did enter into a domestic violence marriage and relationship in that time. And being young, I didn't really know any different, like particularly in the beginning stages, I didn't know. So once you're in it and you've been in it a few years and you're very young and impressionable, and all I foresaw was I've given up my American dream. It's about a relationship, get married, have kids, settle down, have a good job. Like that's just the way that I foresaw that this was going to go. And I was very wrong in that thinking. And over that time I was in that relationship for around 6 years. And then I really just didn't know what to do. If you're ever in that situation where you want to leave, but you just don't know how to leave, and lots of things start to happening, you start to get into deep, you start seeing friends less, you start seeing family less, all you've got is work and all you've got is home life, and that's it. And you become so scared to voice, to say anything, and a lot of my life just disappeared. Those hopes and dreams just completely disappeared. And it got to the point where I actually didn't want to be here anymore. And I thought, well, if I can't leave, then I might as well just not being here in this world, because I can't continue to live this way either. And it wasn't until one day in work, I was very, very good at being able to come into work, put that brave face on. Nobody would have known. I was very like, this is who I am when I turn up for work. But I was very controlling at work because it was my only space to control. So I was a bit OCD. I was a bit of a control freak in terms of the way in which I wanted everything to be and everybody else to be as well. And I suppose I ended up being the person that nobody really wanted to approach because they were a little bit scared of me as well. And really then what happened after a few years, I come into work one morning and I couldn't take it anymore. Like I was at that point where my health was affected, life was being affected, and I just couldn't hide it anymore. And a colleague of mine must have known something wasn't quite right with me. And she literally took her shoes off and she stepped over to me and she put my shoes on and she asked me if I was okay. And in that moment, I knew I had to trust and say no and be okay with whatever happened after that, that I had someone that was going to support me. And then for an entire year, she literally held my hand. She'd been through an experience like I was going through. So it was the best person to meet because she knew how I felt. She never forced me to leave. She held my hand. And she literally helped me for an entire year how to get my confidence back, how to be brave and have the courage to then eventually leave, which I did. And I absolutely owe her my entire life from doing that. That's why stories become so, so powerful, because her sharing her story with me and me now being able to share my stories, that you can make such an impact. But I remember the bathroom was like my safe haven because you could lock the door. And I used to spend a lot of time, sitting in the shower. And I remember kind of, I'm not religious in any way, I'm spiritual though, but I remember just like praying to God, to the universe, saying like, if you help me come out of this, I'm going to work to the rest of my days helping other people. And actually when I left, I did nothing for 12 years. Did absolutely nothing. I hated the world. I was so cynical at everybody and everything that had happened to me. And I might as well have still been in that relationship because I was still going through the motions and the everything else around it. And really, if I look back on it now, it was kind of meant to be though, that I was meant to go through that, meant to go through the 12 years. And then really to come forward to 9 years ago, when I was embarking on the journey to come to Australia, somebody gave me the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. If anybody has read it or watched the documentary on Netflix, it's an absolute game-changing book in my life. And just for people watching or listening to imagine, the Scottish girl with red hair who's super cynical at the world, and is thinking like, why did this happen to me? And she's never read a self-development book ever. And someone gives me the book The Secret to go, hey, read this, where it says like, get creating and manifesting and take responsibility for your life. I went, well, that's a lot of BS. Have that back, and I'm not going to read that again.
And The Secret is actually one of my very favorite books. Joe Fatale, who featured in that, was actually one of
Yeah.
the people who endorsed one of my books. It is
Wow,
it is
amazing.
truly, I got goosebumps when you bring the title of that book up, because
Oh,
literally that was one of the first real self-development books that I
wow.
read as well. So
No
I know how
way.
powerful it can be.
Yeah, it is. It's massive. And not on the first attempt, but then my friend gave it back to me and said, read it with an open mind. And I was still at the point where I was like, I don't want to be closed minded. So sure, I'll read it again. And then for me, I'm very visual. So then I actually watched the documentary. So it took like that three touch point for me to then go, ah, okay, like let's see what other books I could read. And for 6 months prior to coming to Australia, I literally consumed books like no tomorrow. And I literally was just absorbing all of the information. And then I got on a plane and came to Australia, which was only meant to be for a year. 8 years later, I'm still here, citizen of the country. And so for me, things massively changed in my life. But I think I needed to come out of my environment from home, as in Scotland, around people. And I always say to people, you don't have to come to the other side of the world, because when I then came to Australia, I was like, why do I still feel like this? Like I'm in another country, and I'm like, oh, anything to declare? Well, I mean, I have one physical bag, but up here, gosh, how long have you got? So I
Mhm.
soon realized that you still follow you wherever you go in the world. So that was very interesting for me. I didn't quite grasp that when I got here. And then for the past 8 years, like I've just been on that journey of self-development, spirituality, all of those things, and finding my own voice again, particularly not being around people that I could then start to become myself. And I had an absolute fear of public speaking, massively, like a lot of other people. And which is very surprising of now I speak and now I teach other people how to, communicate and do speaking. So it's very, very comical, if you think about it. But just being on that journey of overcoming that and seeing the power of story and having my voice back, it's just so powerful that to help people have a voice and share your story is so, so powerful. But the hope is that anything's possible, and you can change your life, and you can change no matter what has happened in the past, that you can change that. And I think for me, sharing my story, and of course that's a very kind of condensed part of it, is that the hope is giving permission to other people. Like that's the biggest thing for me, is that sharing my story and sharing where I am now, is that by having a voice and sharing your story is so, 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 so powerful.
Can you remember a time, Melanie, or a time where you thought, when you came to the realization perhaps that I haven't had a voice for so long. Here I am, I'm this young girl. I'm going to head off to America and live my best life and my dream, my childhood dream. And
Yeah.
then it's almost as though your voice got taken away then. Is that it? Would that
Yeah.
be right?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. It would have been then.
And when do you think that you had a realization, an awakening, an awareness? Can you remember a definitive moment that you thought, I've got my voice back and I feel like me again? Can you think of a defining moment like that throughout your journey?
I think it would have been round about that 5, 6 years ago, of overcoming my fear of public speaking. Would definitely have been, because even though I was starting to gather my voice again, to then really actually voice it to people was overcoming my fear of public speaking. So it would have been around that 5-6 years ago. Would have been that kind of moment where I actually felt like I had my voice again.
And what kind of tips would you recommend to somebody who knows that, when you just sit there and you've got all this stuff just sitting there, this fire in your belly and this total life journey inside of you, and you just want to get it out. You just want to speak it. You want to speak it into existence. You want to speak its truth. You want to step into your story. What would be some tips that you would give somebody, because you found your voice to overcome that public speaking?
Yeah.
So what are some tips that you would give to somebody to be able to get it out? Just start by getting that story out to overcome that fear.
Yeah, and it can be so confronting to go down that line of story. And I'm sure you know as well that particularly when I work with people, it's very confronting. And really the tips are around take some time for yourself and really think about the events or the situation or experiences that you have, and kind of like mind map them. Like there's, you do like a mind mapping if you're a visual person, or if you're, want to be able to type some things out. Start listing out events, situations, and really start to just kind of list them out. And then if you're maybe at a point where you're like, I'm not so comfortable just like putting it all out there, like pick one of them and go, do you know, this one here, I feel okay to just get my voice and be able to talk about this one experience. So really bring it back to basics with you. We all have so much of it, and it's a bit like myself of, that's a main story for me that I share with people, but I wasn't comfortable to do that at the beginning. It's taken me time to be able to do that. So it's like, maybe for me, I shared about being a fear of public speaking, to then, experience I had in the workplace, to then going back to, okay, actually this brings me to today. So really just take some time, silent time for yourself, and just start listing out, brainstorming events, situations, highs, lows, dark, light, and then just start to go, okay, what parts would I be comfortable to start doing right now? And then that will start to bring your voice to be able to share with people, and then start to get some response back as well. But keep it really simple and just start sharing one thing at a time.
And with your story, and you tell it publicly now, of your time in domestic violence, was there fear of judgment and things like that as well when you actually started doing the personal development and speaking your truth?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do really want to share this part, because I think this is so impactful about the power of storytelling. Is that it would have been about 7 years ago, and I used to do a lot of blogging and just videos of just, out of the darkness into the light. Like that's the things that I was doing then. And I was doing a lot of blogging at the time. And I actually then wrote out this story, and I actually voiced it. It was me voicing it, but in the written format of my time. And someone then someone then actually sent that to someone. And then, so what happened was I actually had contacted my ex-husband. I felt like I was at the point where I wanted to forgive and I wanted to move on. So in that process of me doing that, I then wrote the blog around everything that happened. Anyway, that didn't end very well after he then saw it and everything else happened, but that's okay. I was putting it out there and wanting my voice heard, so it stayed and he got blocked. That's fine. But in that time, someone sent my blog to this lady back home in Scotland, and then she read it. She reached out to me, and I woke up one morning to this huge message in my phone, and she needed to hear that and needed to read that. And she said, oh my God, I've actually left my partner, and because of reading your blog. And out of that, like, that's so impactful. But here's like the absolute pinnacle of this whole scenario is that she was then currently involved with my ex-husband. So she was the current partner of him.
Wow.
I know.
That's a double kaboom, that one.
I
Wow.
know. I
But
know.
isn't that so great? I mean, the positive out of that is that you've taken another bad situation that was a perpetual bad situation, and
Yeah.
you're almost stopping it in its track from
Yeah.
happening again.
Yeah,
Wow. What are the
absolutely.
odds on
You
that
know,
though?
and so we must have had a mutual friend on Facebook, and to this day, neither of us know who it was because when they sent it to her, they
Mm,
blocked her off
mm.
of it, and yeah, she left him. I was going out back home 6 weeks later, and I met her for coffee, and we've been friends ever since, and she never went back, and you know it did stop there because since she left he has not entered into another relationship since. And she bumped into him 18 months ago. I was back home again. She bumped into him while I was there, and he said that he's never been in a relationship and he won't. He said he's lost two amazing women from his behavior, and that was wrong. So yeah, I then
Wow.
stopped that cycle there and then in that moment. So and I didn't know. I just contacted him so that I could have closure, wrote a blog, no idea that that was what was going to happen. And that is the power of having a voice, whether it's spoken or written, is that you just never know who could read it or who could listen to it, and you could change that course for those people.
And I mean, these are just the ones that you know about.
Yeah.
There's probably lots and lots more, no doubt, that have
Yeah.
actually taken action or given them an insight to know that they can, or a bit of hope that they can, just by reading vlogs and hearing stories and sharing those
Yeah.
messages of hope and overcome and things like that as well. So,
Yeah.
wow, what an amazing story that and I'm so glad that you're kind of friends, and more importantly, he's on his hopefully his healing journey, and he's learnt
Yes.
from that experience as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we don't know why we do the things that we do either. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's helped him
Yeah.
unbox what he needed to as well, to be able
Yeah.
to, heal himself also, and we can only move forward from experiences like that. That is absolutely amazing. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I know you're doing some things in the amazing storytelling space, and we'll be sharing how to connect people with you if they want to share their stories and learn those kind of
Yes.
techniques and skills and resources that you've got within your space as well, because you're helping so many to find their voices and to
Yes.
articulate their voices with confidence as well. But
Yeah.
more importantly, how are you in your personal development journey now? Is that something that you're continuing as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that, you know, for yourself as well, I think when you've been through something like that, the trauma is still there. And obviously trauma had been left for such a, you know, 12, nearly 15 years before I actually did anything about it. So I am consistently working on myself. I do get triggered with certain things. I
Mm.
work with coaches, and I have a spiritual practice that I do every single day. So I literally am working on myself every single day to better myself, but improve myself to be able to help other people. And it brings back that hope. So I'm massively dedicated with meditation, yoga, everything like that. Astrology is my biggest thing this year that I've massively went into, because you really start to go even deeper with the person that you are, even without trauma. It's ancestral and everything like that. It's fascinating. So I'm massively into all of that.
That's so great to know. And yes, it is fascinating. I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that you shared your story. And I know that each time we tell it, it does bring up emotions, no matter how many times we do tell it. So we do appreciate that here. And what kind of message, Melanie, would you like to leave the audience on today?
Yeah, I would love to share that wherever you go, go with all your heart.
Love that. That is quite powerful. That is very, very powerful. Thank you so much for being brave to share your story. We'll be sharing where to connect with you. You are so appreciated. This is Melanie Wood. You need to connect with her. We'll be sharing out her links to be able to connect with her, follow her. She is an inspirer, she is an empowerer, and she is a fascinating entrepreneur. You need to go check her out. So you can find the Victim to Victory podcast series on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and our Facebook group. Please subscribe, share, and comment, and help be the change that the world needs. And let me leave you with a message of figure out who you are and do it on purpose. Thanks a lot today, Melanie.